So if this was a movie, we could have well named it Two Retirements and, a retirement being awaited since ages. This week we saw two of India's modern day greats, Sharat Kamal, the table tennis star, and Vandana Kataria, one of the hockey pioneers, the OGs as we call them in hockey circle, won the Junior World Cup medal and then led this incredible surge of women's hockey. Sharat and Vandana both retired this week. They played their, or should I say in the last 10 days, because Sharat happened just a little before that. And then there was this one topic which has been going on and on and on for I don't know how many years now, the retirement of MS Dhoni. In this episode of Game Time, Amit, Vinayakk and Devendra Pandey with us over here. We won't be talking about whether Dhoni should retire or when he should retire. But what we thought we'll do is just kind of understand once again the whole obsession of Chennai Super Kings, or rather, obsession of Chennai with MS Dhoni. It's reached levels that, well, I know this is a subject we keep talking about every season, but every season the level keeps increasing and kind of baffles all of us equally. And there's this wonderful point that someone on Twitter made, that if this was a 28-year-old Dhoni, he wouldn't have tolerated what's happening right now, because he had done the same to the seniors when he took over the captaincy, I think, 15 years or so ago. On that note, let's open the floor, because Devin and Amit sitting in front of me have been listening to me going on and on kind of patiently, and Vinayak, he doesn't have any control because he's sitting far away in Noida of how much I speak or what I do. But Vinayak, I'll come to you first and test the patience of our two friends even more.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting debate. I mean, interesting, I put it within air quotes. Since you're all in Bombay and you can't see me, just imagine me using the Joey from Friends air quotes around interesting. It's become a little tedious, honestly, right? The one thing that I would say is like the 28-year-old Dhoni, that angle that's a slightly flawed argument, because there we are talking about the national team and here you're talking about a privately operated franchise. So, I mean, they don't have any obligations to Indian cricket to take the right call. I mean, it's not like 11 meritorious players have been selected to represent the country at the highest level. This is a franchise who bids on players for money and have the option to construct whatever team they want around Dhoni, which I think that's where the problem lies. Like, if you're purely analyzing it from a logical point of view, I don't know if CSK made the right call in a mega auction where it's usually seen as a window to reset and rebuild almost. I mean, even if you're doing relatively well in the previous cycle, you would still want to think a little ahead, build a better team than you had in the previous cycle. That is where I think Chennai as a franchise, I mean, still early days, but looks like they've miscalculated a few things. If they knew that Dhoni was not going to be able to bat more than 10, 12 balls or, 2-3 overs, like Stephen Fleming seems to have hinted at after the last match, saying, he can't run full stick for 10 overs. If they knew that, I mean, don't they need a proper middle order which can prevent at least Dhoni from batting, maybe in the 12th, 13th over? Like, I mean, have they miscalculated that? Like, that's cricketing point of view. I think that's where it's more baffling, their obsession, the Chennai obsession with Dhoni to build a brand around him, to keep him around as long as they can. Is it at the cost of the franchise's success? I mean, you would still want to win titles, right? That's where I'm a little confused.
I think the absurdity of this whole year was capped off by the first game, which, Chennai Super Kings won against Mumbai Indians. But then I think when Rachin Ravindra finished off the game by hitting a six, he actually got trolled online from Chennai Super Kings fans saying that, "Aap kyun finish kar rahe ho? We have a finisher in the side. Strike, rotate kar do, usko de do, let him hit the six if you." So it's reached that proportions now where you don't want anybody else finishing the games irrespective of kya ho raha hai at the other end. Dhoni hi karna hai, nahi to nahi karna hai. Like, we don't mind if we lose as long as Dhoni is not there. So we've reached that stage. And I think you started off with, mentioning two guys, Vandana Kataria and Sharat Kamal. This was also the time when two legends of the game in India have kind of staved off retirement in a sense. Or one guy has had like a Punarjanam from retirement, which is Sunil Chhetri. Even though he's kind of been dragged out of retirement, wo khud se chale gaye the. Dhoni, we don't know what the pressures on him are, where he wants to go into retirement, walk away into the sunset, I think he's a strawberry farmer or something. Uska kuch.
Plenty of facets to MS Dhoni.
Something. He wants to ride his bikes in Ranchi and chill for the rest of his life, but maybe the franchise does not want to, because clearly Dhoni is the reason why a lot of fans come to the stadium to watch. So clearly, I don't know. जैसे अभी विनायक ने बोला कि
Logic.
This is like a franchise. They've paid money to retain this uncapped player. So Vinayak has kind of said कि why shouldn't Dhoni continue for 2-3 more seasons?
No, I mean, come on. The franchisee have paid so much, and I think Chennai people or Chennai franchisee are not yet in terms that there will be IPL without MS Dhoni, because they want MS Dhoni. There's a lot of money involved. क्योंकि धोनी ने अश्वत्थामा के जैसा है, उसको कर्स मिला है. जब तक आईपीएल लगाए तो वो खेलेगा भी, हमेशा खेलेगा, वो कभी मरेगा नहीं. श्री कृष्ण भगवान को आके उसकी वो निकालनी पड़ेगी तभी कुछ होगा. मेरे को दिख नहीं रहा है. आई थिंक एक इमोशनल अटैचमेंट क्या होता है फैन का फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम. ऑफ कोर्स वी हैव सीन सचिन, बट दैट टिल एक्सटेंट धोनी का एकदम थोड़ा ऊपर लेवल गया है कि दैट द फ्रेंचाइजी कैन नॉट सी their team without Dhoni. इसमें एक फ्रेंचाइजी की भी गलती हुई है. Like that way Mumbai Indians were a bit smart. When Sachin was there, they knew their downfall is on. He might soon exit competitive cricket. They tried to find a young guy. So they spotted Rohit Sharma and they groomed him and they made him the captain. And that's how the transition happened. Probably Chennai doesn't have any guy at the moment, or probably they didn't groom over the years that can replace Dhoni. Of course, Dhoni is such a huge tree that you cannot replace him. But still, I feel somewhere Chennai did lack the planning to find the right guy who can be the torchbearer after Dhoni retires. And I don't see Dhoni retiring in probably next 2 years, because, of course, with the impact player rule, he has gone the more, can say, thoda sa leverage mil gaya franchisee ko, that he can extend his game.
I think the impact player rule kind of, I think, in a way, अगर जो हम देखें तो it's custom made for a player like him, जिसको मतलब आना है 8-10 बॉल आपको खेलने हैं. I mean, wicket keeping, that stumping जो उसने किया था वो चलो at least it proved कि थोड़ा सा reflexes है. But again, to expect कि वो पूरा innings wicket keeping करके then he'll play like anchor knock या whatever the 5 overs जो भी इसको खेलना, वो तो नहीं होने वाला है. But also the points that you guys make, right? Again, logic कम थोड़ा side में ही रख रहा है इसमें, but also says a lot about Indian sports fan का psyche, right? We aren't अब तक वो एक, I think in most of the cases franchisee के साथ that whole connect isn't there. It's still very individual. Like Pratyush, our former colleague, now he's joined बिच्छू गैंग ज्वाइन कर लिया उसने अभी.
हाँ, 4-5 कड़ी लगाएगा वो दरवाजे पे भी.
तो I mean, he had mentioned कि जब भी विराट कोहली दिल्ली के लिए रणजी ट्रॉफी खेलने के लिए गया था after this 13-year-old 12-year-old gap, तो stands में people are chanting RCB and not Delhi, you know. So we are still a country that, again, at the risk of repeating ourselves, that worships individuals, and that whole connect with the franchisees in there. Perhaps that's why. I mean, and who knows, यार, by the time Dhoni retires, उसने शायद वो Gigi Buffon वाला भी record तोड़ दिया रहेगा at Juventus. Buffon was 45, I think, when he retired a couple of years ago. I don't know, at 45 धोनी कहाँ पर क्या.
हाँ, इमेजिन है सब रिटायर हो गया, धोनी पहुंचा अभी भी खेल रहा है, उसको सब उसके सब टीममेट सपोर्ट स्टाफ बन गए.
इमेजिन रोहित शर्मा पहले रिटायर हो गया, विराट कोहली पहले रिटायर हो गया.
अच्छी सीमेंट वाला है, राइट है. मुझे का नाम नहीं लेंगे, इंडिया सीमेंट की है, ये दीवार टूटती क्यों नहीं है, बट स्टिल.
विनायक, you've been silent for a while now.
Waiting like Dhoni, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that's where it is, right? I mean, so the one thing that I would like to add to what you said, Mihir, I think the franchise connect is probably there. It's probably there more than we realize. The RCB chant is, of course, indirectly a Virat chant. But, I mean, Chennai has, over the years been very close with the franchise. It's one of the things that we've been discussing, right? I mean, Chennai and Tamil Nadu is not exactly like there are not many sporting achievements to celebrate from a local point of view. That is where the Chennai Super Kings, obsession, probably a strong word, but yeah, the CSK fandom in Chennai is built heavily on the success that Dhoni gave them, which has probably carried on a little too long. Again, see, Dhoni retiring or not, it's a very different debate if you're talking about international cricket and franchise cricket. That's my only thing. He doesn't have to retire. He can continue playing. It is what the fans, are the fans just happy to see him for a few sixes and lose matches, as we've seen in the first few matches already? They're celebrating wickets when they're in a losing situation just because they're getting to see Dhoni bat, and that's a little jarring. The fans do, at least from my limited social media circles, I can see there is a little more a question over what is happening. Is this the right thing? Is this helping the team win? But ultimately, I would imagine that if you have a batter who's capable of scoring, as he clearly shown, 180, 200 strike rate, then are you not utilizing him properly? I mean, even if he can't run for 5 overs or 10 overs or whatever the explanation is, push him a little higher, then give him the freedom. I mean, it's the angle of what the team is trying to do in terms of getting back to winning ways. I mean, they missed the playoffs last year. I mean, are they happy with not qualifying for playoffs if they manage to fill the seats to watch Dhoni play? These are the sort of questions that's a little baffling to me.
So this is precisely what I was actually going to ask you, to put that whole argument in perspective, to understand what is the issue over here. And that's precisely the issue, that CSK were trying to accommodate Dhoni. Sometimes it looks forcefully in their lineup. They're compromising on the outcomes. And right now, the 7th as things stand, they're recording this before the match begins on April 3rd, and CSK are 7th. They've lost to 1-1. Their net run rate is in the minus. So
I think I have an answer. I think all the bat and ball belongs to Mahendra Singh Dhoni there. And that is मेरी बैट मेरा बॉल पॉलिसी. तो उसको खिलाना ही पड़ेगा. कुछ भी हो जाए नहीं तो लेके चला जाएगा स्टंप को. वही चला और रीजन कोई नहीं है दिख रहा है एटलीस्ट. But ठीक है. Continue. Sorry मैं आपको interrupt किया. But I think it's more to do with brand, the money which he brings. Otherwise, no other CSK और कोई brand face नहीं है. All those money which sponsor.
So then that whole succession debate comes in, right? I mean, if you look at multiple franchisees, they have, at least in Mumbai, for example, they have lined up their succession.
But
yeah, even Hardik Pandey they have lined up now.
Yeah.
But technically, CSK did try. They did try to give Ravindra Jadeja captaincy thing. Clearly, it did not work out. But what I find very strange, like when Ravindra Jadeja was getting stick, Dhoni didn't say a thing. He didn't say that, this is the guy the team wants and I back him. Like even now. So recently when this whole debate was happening about Dhoni coming late, and like that time I think Ambati Rayudu was talking about the pressures that some of the batters face when they are coming up the order before Dhoni, and he's like, you can hear the fans chanting ki out ho ja because Dhoni aayega. And he's like,
jaldi maar Dhoni wait kar raha hai.
And you're like, it's so weird that your own fans are telling you to get out. So जब ये सब होता है तो Dhoni never comes and says, यार भाई अपने ही players है, please like keep patience. If the ये is right, I will come back.
Vinayakk, you've spent a lot of your life in Chennai, and I guess before you moved to Noida at the Express a couple of years ago, you were there, so you've seen a lot of this fandom firsthand. Can you put it into kind of perspective or context for us, exactly on ground, how exactly is this whole Dhoni fandom? Because we see it in other spheres of life, right? The whole Rajni fascination, for example, that we keep hearing about sitting outside Chennai. So on ground, how is it?
Actually, I've not watched a CSK match live yet, so that's for the record.
No, but in the city, I'm sure there must be some vibe.
Yeah, it's one thing that I've managed to keep away from for some reason. The analogy is impossible to miss, right? I mean, the Rajinification of Dhoni is something that we've written about as well in the past. Technically, an outsider coming somewhere else and finding a home in Chennai, the parallels are impossible to miss, right? And almost like, building this aura around him with his charisma, style and all that. Yeah, so the analogy is impossible to miss, and it's kind of where, I'm probably risking a little bit of generalization here, but fans in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai, we idolize these movie stars. It's been the case for ages, right? I mean, right from the MGR days. The movie stars have always been huge, bigger than life celebrities, larger than life celebrities, and that's kind of carried over with Dhoni. And if you really think about it, cricket is a big, it's a huge part of the Chennai culture, the clubs and the first division, second division. When Ashwin comes back from international cricket, he makes sure he tries and plays these club matches. The TNPL games are almost always, well attended. The craze is there, and of course no one is going to forget the 1999 incident, which almost feels a little ironical right now when the whole crowd stood up for the opposition team, and here they are cheering for their own wicket. So that
and not any other opposition, right? We're talking about Pakistan as an opposition.
Yeah, and here we are, cheering for their own team's wicket. So that sort of circle is impossible to miss. So that they've never had this cricketing hero apart from Ashwin in the last 8-10 years, and even now he's when he was in the IPL with the CSK, he wasn't a big star. He's come back as this huge fan favorite cult hero now. The city hasn't had a cricketing hero to idolize, and then came along Dhoni with his all this sleeveless swagger and the long hair and all that. It's impossible not to fall in love, and of course that's kind of where it's probably extended beyond its lifetime that I mean, yeah, you can't. This is what. So the tricky thing with this is like you can't rationalize these emotions that fans have, right? You could ask me the same question about Arsenal. Honestly, we've spoken about this in the podcast. Like, why do I keep supporting a club who is millions of miles away and can't seem to win anything for the life of their whatever they try? So it's difficult to answer that question. The heart wants what it wants. So
because you're a masochist, that's what we are.
Yeah, I think sports fans are by definition masochists. So yeah, I think that has to play a part in it, right? I mean, you want this emotional narrative to succeed. You think that, these things that happen in movies can happen in real life. That sort of romanticism is why, I guess it's going on. And maybe that's why CSK is hanging on to it. I mean, maybe you can't blame them as a franchise if they keep bringing in the money and the people to the stands, I guess.
I think it's more to do with the water of Tamil Nadu. I mean, if you look at it over the years, जिसको भी उन्होंने पूजा है, they have gone extreme. Be it politician, be it actor, Rajnikant be almost fading away, but still they are pushing him. आ ही रही है. Probably it's to do with the land, to the water. कि वहाँ की माटी में वैसा है कि जिसको भी हम लाइक करेंगे एकदम दिल खोल के करेंगे, उसको जाने नहीं देंगे. Probably this could be the case. Otherwise इतना पागलपन किसी एक आदमी के लिए क्यों रहेगा? We know that. वो आएगा यार 5 बॉल 3 बॉल 4 बॉल लोग रेडी एक झलक पाने के लिए कि धोनी मिल जाए टाइप से. कुछ तो आई थिंक it's to do with the water of the land or land in history जैसा वहाँ का रहा है कि जो एक फैन जितनी एक्सट्रीम कर सकता है वो हदें पार किया है.
Amit, to wrap this part of our conversation up, do you see Chennai winning IPL again until Dhoni is in their team?
I mean, they could, right? They could still surround the team with better players. Right now, the team that they have is not complementary to Dhoni. Like, let's keep Rachin Ravindra aside, but if they had much more explosive batters at the top of the order, middle order, then maybe you don't need a Dhoni to come in at whatever, at 7 and 8. He can still come at his preferred position of number 9, I guess. But I mean, that's the problem. Like, Dhoni is having to have that decision very early. At some point, usko 15वें over में या 14वें over में आना पड़ रहा है. He's not comfortable doing that, and the franchise is not comfortable letting him do that.
And I think it's more to do with the post-auction. नया सेटअप आया है. If you look at पुराने में तुषार देशपांडे was there, दीपक चाहर was there. तो same set of lineup था. तो धोनी could utilize them where they wanted to. But अभी धोनी probably first 2-4 मैच ही हुए, तो मैं ज़्यादा इसमें काउंट नहीं करूँगा. The more it goes ahead, Dhoni probably will understand situation क्या. Of course, he knows much better than you all know. Probably वो capitalize करे और use करे अपने आर्मी को जितने जैसे कर सकते.
Yeah, let's see how the season unfolds for CSK. At least we know one thing is certain, that wicket will be cheered whether it's an opposition team or their own, unless it's Dhoni's. On that note, we'll move to the second topic that we were planning to quickly talk about in this episode, which is the bizarre decision of the Board of Control of Cricket in India, for Cricket in India, to host a test match in New Delhi in peak pollution season, because there is officially, unofficially, जो भी आप कह लो, दिल्ली के winter से पहले दिल्ली में pollution season आती है. And Vinayakk, we saw last November, I mean, just kind of quickly put it in kind of bigger picture. On Wednesday, the BCCI kind of released the domestic season schedule where South Africa are slated to tour India. They'll play the first test match in mid-November in New Delhi, and from there they move to Guwahati. Last time this happened, something like this happened in India, in New Delhi, we saw Sri Lanka entering the field wearing masks and fielding with masks. Vinayakk, over to you about this wonderful, smart decision that's taken by the country's administrators.
I would like to just state for the record that it's funny how I've become the Chennai expert as well as Delhi expert in this podcast. So, yeah, it's something that you simply can't wrap your...
Sorry, but like Devendra said, na, अबे तो चेन्नई के पानी में कुछ है, दिल्ली के हवा में कुछ है यार.
और बिना कभी दुग्गल साहब है, अभी ये बन जाएगा, कुछ और बन जाएगा वो. आज डॉक्टर है, कल टीचर है.
I am being destroyed by the elements around me. Oh God, yeah. Like what do you make of that decision? I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, the rotation is always cited as the reason for, allotting venues, and the home season, India's home season is typically become October to December, January. So just like to point out that this year at the India Open, the badminton tournament, the Super 750 tournament that happened in January, there was a Danish badminton player, Mia Blichfeld, who actually complained after going back home that for 2 years in a row that she's fallen sick when coming to Delhi to participate in the India Open. And this is an indoor tournament at the IG Stadium that we were talking about, right? And now imagine asking people to run around in the field at the Kotla in November. I think we were discussing just a while back in office, I think November 18th last year had like a 4-year high in terms of AQI, the severity. It fell on November 18th last year, which would be the 5th day of the test match this year.
If we were to believe the BCCI Secretary Vinayakk, whom our colleague Venkat spoke to, Devajit Saikia, the BCCI Secretary, says that the air pollution doesn't happen every year. So, well, the funny thing is, I got married in Delhi in November last year, and while my marriage was going on, the air quality outside was 500 plus, and half of the Baratis who came from Bombay, they returned with like sore throat, red eyes.
वो तो डांस नहीं कर पाए इसलिए सांसें आने लगी ऊपर
शादी या नहीं हो पा रही और आपको क्रिकेट खेलना है यार, क्या हो रहा है इस देश में?
नहीं, they are throwing some challenge यार, ऐसा नहीं है.
Amit, you were saying something before I cut you off.
वो डांस कर रहा था उसका वो था.
But no, just that whole thing, right? I mean, Beijing is still reeling from that whole disaster in the build-up to the 2008 Olympics, that whole air pollution debate.
Yeah.
And aaj tak 17 saal ho gaye, and aaj tak they're still having the after effects. I mean, of course, there are on-ground problems of having cricket being played in that pollution. It isn't great for PR as well for a body like BCCI that's so image concerned. मतलब ये तो कुलाड़ी मीट पैर वाला सिस्टम है.
Are they image concerned? I just thought that they don't particularly care about things like criticism. Like जो करना है करो, हम अपना जैसे चला रहे वैसे.
Perhaps, yeah.
नहीं, उनकी प्लानिंग तो हमेशा अच्छी रही है, ऐसा नहीं है, वो तो ये बी कैट बी बिजार क्रिकेट कंट्रोल ऑफ इंडिया वो हो सकता है, लेकिन ठीक है. अभी यार उनको लग रहा नहीं होगा, उस समय बात हो चुकी होगी पवन देवता से कि उस समय हवाएं यहाँ से वहाँ फैलेंगी और कुछ होगा नहीं, आपको सुंदर सुंदर हवाएं मिलेंगी, आपको पहाड़ों से खास लाया जाएगा.
Secretly, our producer Shashank, I'm sorry, but I'll have to do this. Shashank Bhargava has texted me right now that actually, if sports is about testing physical endurance, then it makes sense to have people playing peak pollution. Shashank, why don't you give answer to this beautiful question that you're asking?
Yeah, like BCCI is testing what human beings are actually capable of. That's the real test. It's beyond cricket, okay? It's beyond humanity.
क्रिकेट तो कोई मैजिक खेलते हो ना, अलग क्या है? Makes sense.
I think this is the way to make test matches interesting again. Yeah.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, clearly.
We are testing the Darwinian theories, like all these years later, if Charles Darwin is right.
Just to be very clear and to make it obvious, this is all sarcasm, right? हम लोग
संभल के. To be fair, I think Pakistan Cricket Board could also say यार वो श्रीलंका आए थे, यहाँ पे गोली चला तो हम भी तो वही कर रहे थे, एक्साइटिंग ही बना रहे थे टेस्ट मैच को.
शूटिंग और क्रिकेट दोनों मिक्स
10 साल से कोई आया नहीं. होम एडवांटेज कुछ होना चाहिए यार हमारे पास भी, ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? स्पिन के अलावा सांस भी नहीं लेने देंगे हम उनको. आओ.
Yeah. So no, it's
I don't know why you're dragging me in the sarcasm. मैं तो बहुत serious हूँ. Like I'm telling the truth. कोई मतलब यही ऐसे ही होना चाहिए. सब sports के साथ ऐसा.
क्या? ये बड़े बाहर आना चाहिए.
अगला टेस्ट मैच चेन्नई में.
Yeah. No, we laugh about this, but this is actually an extremely serious.
No, I think उसके पीछे कारण ये होगा ना. लास्ट ईयर रणजी ट्रॉफी 2 लेग में हुई है. तो नवंबर में उन्होंने पहले सब रणजी ट्रॉफी नॉर्थ में भी खिलवा दिया था, तब शायद इशू नहीं हुआ. वैसे भी डोमेस्टिक प्लेयर वो थिएटर आर्टिस्ट की तरह है, उन लोग को देखता नहीं है, बहुत कम लोग देखते हैं. बाद में जब इंडिया IPL आए तभी सब देखते हैं. तो अगर उनको बेचारे को प्रॉब्लम भी हुई रहेगी, बताया नहीं होगा किसी को. बट ठीक है, अगर सेक्रेटरी साहब ने कहा है तो आप मान के चलिए.
I mean, चलिए यार, प्रॉब्लम तो है. Let's not be in denial. अगर so whoever has spent like even 1 hour in Delhi in November up to January knows how tough it is to survive in that pollution. Let's see if BCCI stick to this decision or they do reverse it going forward.
नहीं, but BCCI को ठिकाना नहीं है पास अब. मतलब आपको लास्ट इंडिया ऑस्ट्रेलिया का मैच धर्मशाला में होने वाला था, 15-20 दिन पहले बताया, अब नहीं हो रहा है.
हाँ.
तो BCCI we cannot predict anything. कुछ भी हो सकता है जब भी होना रहेगा करके.
So yeah, basically we'll see. November तो काफी दूर है अब तक. We'll see how that decision plays out. I think that's about it for today's episode. We covered 2 episodes, which is one more than we usually do.
2 topics in fact.
2 topics, exactly. Yeah.
वो पीछे पिक्चर आई थी ना, ऐसे एक साथ 4 कहानियां एक साथ.
वही करते रहेंगे हम.
2000 में आती थी ऐसा.
But yeah, thanks for bearing with us. Thanks Vinayakk for joining us all the way from Noida, because हम 3 जन यहाँ पर बॉम्बे में और आप अकेले वहाँ पर हो. शशांक, तू As always, the Karta Darta of this podcast, Amit, Devin, and me, Mihir from Bombay. Thanks all for listening. We'll be back with a new episode of Game Time next week.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.